Ladies and gentlemen, bon dia. Good morning to everyone who's gladly accepted our invitation to be here today, and to the just about 500 who are following us today online. It is my greatest pleasure to welcome you to the European Competition Day, whether you're here or joining us from abroad. And you know that we cannot all be together in this room yet because of the pandemic conditions, but we are united by the commitment to dedicate a special day to competition policy and its role in the single market. Why a European Competition Day? The European Competition Day was actually founded or launched in 2000. The very first edition was right here in Lisbon, just 21 years ago, almost day by day. And the purpose was to inform European citizens that they are the prime beneficiaries of competition policy. And I want to say this is still very much the purpose today. I would only add that together with informing citizens, I would also add that we would like to inform firms as well, that competition is beneficial to both. And it is a task that needs to be a recurrent one. Very often, citizens hear about competition authorities because of a merger decision or a huge fine or stated support, when in fact, competition policy has a wide-reaching impact in the lives of European firms and citizens day by day, when they are choosing a new pair of sneakers online, or they're paying their communications bill, or buying a book. In current times, I will argue that this positive impact is even more crucial. The European economic recovery is at its early stages. No doubt that the policies designed by political leaders to enable such a recovery will be anchored in EU values. And these EU values include human dignity, human rights, freedom, rule of law, democracy, and I want to argue that competition can, as a pillar of the single market, enhance such values. Taking competition policy into account in the recovery agenda is a fantastic opportunity to make the economy rebound in a more agile, inclusive, and resilient way for the future. Why is this? Because by avoiding and removing market distortions, competition creates resilient firms, capable of competing within borders and abroad. Competition breeds innovation and breeds initiative. And innovation can be, and has been, the main driver for the improvement of living standards in the last decades. Competition energizes the economy, and it can significantly contribute to make the European Union a place where entrepreneurs recognize ideal conditions to start or grow their businesses. This is why our closing keynote speaker today will be one such European entrepreneur that has been successful in facing competition worldwide. Competition is also an instrument in reducing inequality and in promoting inclusiveness. In other words, it makes products and services more accessible to all, and this is because it widens people's access to more choice, including good quality products at lower prices. Competition dynamics creates opportunities, including new jobs. And this is critical at a time when a number of job seekers increased due to the pandemic, and when workers will need to adapt and retrain for different jobs post-pandemic. In other words, competition policy enables workers' mobility towards sectors which are or will be growing. Because of all this and more, the contribution of competition policy to the European values is more than is typically acknowledged. And this brings me to today's discussion, which will be centered around three key topics: digital markets, the role of competition policy in recovering the economy, and competition as a catalyst for a more inclusive and social Europe. The first panel will focus on discussing how to ensure that Europe is fit for the digital age. We know we've had maybe a slow start in the 90s, but the fact is digital technology has very much changed people's lives in the past 2 decades and has changed business models as well. Just last week, a massive outage in the internet reminded us again of how much our daily habits rely on technology. And this major transformation has been accelerating even further since last year, as we all know. Competition is core to ensure that the digital economy works for the common good. To paraphrase our favorite Nobel laureate, Jean Tirole. The digital economy changes firms' incentives, how they compete, and it modifies market dynamics. For the past few years now, we have discussed the natural monopoly characteristics of digital platforms, such as the strong networks effects that generate winner-takes-all outcomes in the digital ecosystems. We have learned how digital platforms may become gatekeepers and twist the market in their favor. How we as consumers are prone to behavioral biases. How digital platforms often know us better than we know ourselves. How zero is elusive regarding the price paid by users, given the value of the data they generate. How platforms levy and monetize their market power on other sides of the market, and how algorithms can be designed to nudge consumers into doing something, and we've only seen a slight bit of what algorithms can do. All this may bring forth new ways of colluding or abusing market power and may structurally change business incentives. In the past year, as we know, has been very fruitful with developments aimed at addressing these challenges, such as the European Commission's Digital Markets Act. In the first panel, we'll discuss just the steps ahead. The second panel in today's conference will discuss the role of competition policy in recovering the economy. Since the start of the pandemic, we have witnessed a plunge in GDP that reminds us of wartime or the Great Depression. At any rate, this is unprecedented since the founding of the EU. Worldwide, governments have committed more than 13 trillion euros for the economic recovery, and the EU instrument represents itself 1.8 trillion euros. In any case, recovering is a challenge for today and the years to come. Everyone is called to play a part, including through competition policy. And I will mention just a few competition principles or policies that can be embedded in recovery strategies. For example, ensuring competitive neutrality in public financial support to firms, or to remove across sectors unnecessary barriers to entry and expansion so that we can unleash the full potential of our economies for recovery and growth. Or even a third idea is to combat bid rigging and ensure competitive and efficient public tenders, given the sizable public spending that will occur. Our panels will further discuss these matters with examples that place competition at the core of the recovery. And then the final, third and final panel in today's conference will focus on competition as a catalyst for a more inclusive and social Europe. Supporting inclusiveness and fair play in labor markets is particularly important in the current economic turmoil. Labor markets are, as we are well aware, essential to the competitiveness of the EU economy. And competition can indeed contribute to keeping labor markets dynamic and open. And this will bring opportunities to everyone. So topics such as barriers to professional mobility or collective bargaining or no-poach agreements between firms are just a few where the interplay between competition and labor markets arises. And this is something that will be discussed and more in the third panel. May I say this is an important area for the Portuguese Competition Authority as well. First, in a joint project with the OECD, we put forward recommendations and proposals for legal amendments aimed at eliminating unnecessary barriers to corporate and professional initiative. The Portuguese Competition Authority enforcement has also targeted anti-competitive behavior in labor markets. We have acted on no-poach agreements where firms agree not to hire workers from each other. And we did this both through enforcement and advocacy. Indeed, we launched an initiative and a dialogue with stakeholders not long ago regarding best practices to prevent anti-competitive behavior in labor markets. We are emphasizing this now and again because in times of economic recovery, when some firms are still downsizing, professionals must be able to create and seize opportunities, to change jobs and careers if they so need to, and to be reintegrated in the market. In other words, this is the right time to get rid of unnecessary barriers in that field. Some final remarks. These three topics draw a roadmap of key contributions that competition policy has to offer, and namely in advancing EU values, as I said, in prompting recovery and prosperity, in promoting inclusiveness and fair play in labor markets, in fostering digital transformation that works for all. Dear friends, make no mistake, today, just like when the treaties were drafted, competition is a cornerstone for creating a fairer and prosperous society for all. And it is in the power of all of us here today to make a difference for the better. Depending where you sit, you can either implement that difference or demand that difference. A final word of thanks, first and foremost, to my peers at national competition authorities and at the European Commission, because they kept competition enforcement alive and kicking during the past year and a half, despite such unprecedented challenges. And I want to extend those thanks to the wider competition community, including judges in courts, practitioners in firms, decision makers in parliament and governments, for collectively helping shape Europe to be more competitive and a welcoming hub for innovation. And finally, I want to extend my deepest thanks to both Minister Cisa Vieira and Executive Vice President Vestager for their resolute involvement in such crucial matters. Every day, not just today, is a good day to implement competition policy. So thank you very much for being here today with us, and I wish you all a fruitful discussion. Thank you. Obrigada.